are back, and it's good to be back. Fortunately, apparently nobody's died in the last few weeks, have they, Tim?
Yeah, which is, this is great. That nobody famous died. I think Harrison Ford jacked himself up out there on the set of something. Hey, look, Harrison, love you, baby. He's damn near 80, if not already 80. Love you. Let the stunt people do it, man. And you know what I'm saying? We got it. You're the man.
Doom.
Yes.
Temple of Doom too.
Yes.
Like I think a third of his action scenes in Temple of Doom, if not more than that, Temple of Doom are the stunt double, which is what it should have been in the first place.
Yeah, let him do it, Harrison. It's all right, baby. We want to keep you around a little bit longer. You gotta freaking kill yourself. Stop it. I think Tom needs to get the hell over that too. Cruz. Yeah. All right, Tommy. It's been. We got it. You're a badass.
Even Jackie Chan doesn't do it anymore.
You can't make that jump anymore, man. You can't make that jump. It's okay. Ain't nobody mad at you. But
And in fact, little known story is that the big jump in Rumble in the Bronx, which is when still Jackie was in his prime, but the big jump from balcony to balcony across the that alley.
Oh.
That's not Jackie in the final film. That is Stanley Tong, the director, and doing it. How weird is that? The director's doing the stunt because Jackie did it once, almost broke his ankle doing it, and was terrified to do it again. And Stanley said, "Well, damn it all, then I'll go do it." Stanley went and did it.
You know what, Stanley? Good for you.
and the crazy thing is, they still had a stunt team. So when the stunt team is sitting there watching the star do it and get scared, and then the director does it. Well, what are the stunt guys doing? Why they're sitting around going, "Why are we even here? Why are we even here?" The director and the star are like getting into this. Okay, whatever. You guys knock yourselves out.
Look, there was a moment when that was extremely impressive, and and all that. And you know what? It's okay, guys. It's all CGI now. Cut it out.
It's crazy. Well, so we've got here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with MOD. We got a bunch of MOD stuff from a lot of companies that do have great titles on MOD. And Tim does not know what I'm going to get through here. So I'm going to let Tim weigh in with his outstanding film history wisdom and tell me which, if any of these, you should watch. Now, before I get into that, this is kind of I just want to preface it with 3 titles, all of which are really recommended, but only for silent film fans. There is this is all from Flicker Alley, all on MOD, all Blu-ray. Laurel or Hardy, the early solo films of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy, which is great because they did a thing before they teamed up, and there's some really really fun, very obscure, kind of cool one-reelers and whatnot here. They've broken down Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy plus bonus material, cool little booklet. Then there is also Clara Bow and Gary Cooper.
Oh, wow.
In Children of Divorce, which is amazing. Gary Cooper, before he revealed that amazing voice, was not a bad silent actor. This is from 1927, right on the cusp. 71 very, very short, brisk minutes. Clara Bow, of course, didn't really make the transition to sound, but Gary Cooper did. And that's what makes this interesting is that, the actress really hit her heyday in silent, and the actor is about to become the biggest thing ever in the sound era. And then lastly, the original 1927 Chicago, which everybody kind of forgets that it was a silent film, originally, and it also has the Golden 20s on here. So each, Chicago's about 2 hours long, just under, and the Golden 20s is about an hour. So you get a nice little double feature. But it's cool looking at the silent version of it. Roxy Hart and all that stuff, and comparing it to the musical, so it's all very cool.
So that Renee Zellweger, that's almost 20 years.
Stop it! 2002. Don't do that to me. 2002. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. I do not want to hear it. I will wait until next year when they have the anniversary. I don't want to know about. All right. So here we go. We are going to start off with the Paramount titles. Here we go, Tim. This is all MOD from Paramount.
Oh my.
Okay. And it's funny because I requested Eye for an Eye, and I thought I so want to see that Chuck Norris movie again. No, not that Eye for an Eye. It's not the Chuck Norris Eye for an Eye. This is Eye for an Eye with Sally Field, Kiefer Sutherland, and Ed Harris.
Oh, my.
So we got that. We have We're No Angels with Humphrey Bogart and Peter Ustinov. Michael Curtiz directing.
They remade that in the 80s too, I think, with Sean
I think they
Penn
did. Sean
and
Penn,
yeah, somebody. Yeah.
So all right. Eye for an Eye sat with Sally Field. We're No Angels. Humphrey Bogart, Peter Ustinov. Lady Sings the Blues. Diana Ross as Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
We've got a John Hughes 5-movie collection with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She's Having a Baby. Pretty in Pink, and Some Kind of Wonderful. We have a Girls Rule collection, Mean Girls, Clueless, and She's the Man with Amanda Bynes.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We have Chris Rock and Bernie Mac in Head of State. A little bit before its time in a weird way. We have Greg Kinnear in Dear God.
Oh, wow.
Right. And we have Dead Man on Campus. I'd totally forgotten this thing even existed. Dead Man on Campus with... who the hell was in this? Mark Paul Gosselaar and Tom Everett Scott. We have the Louis C.K. written and directed Pootie Tang. We have a movie that I am greatly fond of. The Reginald Hudlin directed The Ladies' Man.
Oh yeah.
With taking off on the Tim Meadows character from SNL. Cheech and Chong and Still Smokin'. And then The Naked Gun, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, and The Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult. Tim, is there anything there that people should go out and order?
Well, look, I know that it's a little bit controversial to say, but those John Hughes films are still near and dear to my heart. Just about all of them, right? The films live in the period from which they come from. So I believe one of them is Some Kind of Wonderful, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yeah.
And did you say you had like a 5-pack?
It's a 5-pack. It's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Ferris Bueller, She's Having a Baby, Pretty in Pink, and Some Kind of Wonderful.
And they're just, and the films are just wonderful. Particularly Ferris Bueller. Can't go wrong with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But, dude, Eye for an Eye. That's a John Schlesinger film.
Eye for an Eye. Yeah.
That's the Sally Field film. That film was actually pretty damn good. The Sally Field, Kiefer Sutherland, and Ed Harris running around in that movie. That was not a bad, tight little movie back when Sally Field was kind of like all that.
I have a confession. I don't even remember this movie.
Yeah.
And I would have remembered like a John Schlesinger movie. Like I even remember when the thing he did with Martin Sheen and the Voodoo, whatever that was.
Yeah.
Remember that? Like, I remember all these John Schlesinger movies. I looked at this, I just thought, I don't even remember this. Like, when I saw Eye for an Eye, the Chuck Norris movie is actually the one that takes place in Hong Kong, where he goes mano a mano with Professor Tanaka. So I was wrong on all kinds of levels when I was thinking of this. So I was messed up. But
Amanda Silver wrote that screenplay. It's all Amanda Silver film. And there were a few others in there that I thought were kind of interesting.
Naked Gun movies.
Can't go wrong with the Naked Gun movies.
Okay. Yeah,
pretty well. Leslie is sort of reinventing himself. People forget he had been like a serious dramatic actor.
Yeah.
In the 50s and for a while they entered the 70s, television, all that kind of stuff, and sort of reinvented himself. Well, I guess beginning with what? I guess it would have been with Airplane, the first one.
Yeah.
Which was his first one? He was in that one, right?
It was Airplane. That was it. That was the one.
Guys, he played the doctor in that and sort of reinvented himself and then just had another whole third act to his career doing those goofy ass movies. And they were fun.
How do we feel about Pootie Tang in hindsight?
Pootie Tang, look, Louis C.K. This is the interesting thing about Pootie Tang. Think about Pootie Tang. We think about Louis. We even think about Chris Rock, because Chris Rock is in Pootie Tang.
It was originally a sketch on his show.
Well, it's this whole thing there. But Pootie Tang itself, hold on. The guy that plays Pootie Tang, his name is Lance Carruthers or something.
Lance
like that.
Crowther, yeah. What happened to him?
First of all, Lance goes all the way back to the early days of the sort of like, let's say the post Richard Pryor early comedy scene. Lance was a comedian and a comedy writer. You can go all the way back to Comic Justice, early 1990s, right? And all of the black comics that came out of that scene, including Chris and Dave Chappelle and all of those cats, Lance wrote for all of those people.
Wow.
And he wrote for every one of those television shows. He wrote for the Chris Rock show. I mean, Everybody Hates Chris, I think was the name of that show.
Right.
The sitcom, all of those things forever. So that's where he goes back. This is why all these guys know him and knew him. And this was, Louis C.K. wrote this piece, and and Lance had been, he put him in this piece, and it's a wacky, wacky movie that I think is going to eventually one day be one of those sort of cult classics. It's not quite there yet, but it's well on its way.
Well, that would be very sweet. Look, I know Ladies Man will never be a cult classic, but I freaking love this movie.
I love that movie.
I really do. I mean, I love the character. I love the bits on SNL. But what's smart about this is that they don't ask Tim Meadows to carry the whole movie, to do anything that he wasn't already doing. He's basically doing the sketch, the Courvoisier, the whole thing and all that. And Will Ferrell should really only do cameos.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but when Will Ferrell shows up in Wedding Crashers, Mom, more meatloaf! He steals the movie. Yeah. That's all we need of him. Little small doses. When he shows up in here and starts talking about, hot oil wrestling other men, it's really funny. And it's all you need. It's just small doses. I am a fan of Ladies Man. Let's talk about the two older ones here for a second. Lady Sings the Blues and We're No Angels. I mean, We're No Angels, I keep forgetting that this even exists. It's not top tier Paramount picture from the time, but it's fine. It's got, Basil Rathbone shows up. Michael Curtiz does a good job. I think, it's a lighter side of Humphrey Bogart that you don't often see.
Yeah. I think it was Sean Penn, and I want to say De Niro that did one in the 80s.
You're right.
De Niro. That's a weird sort of thing. And of course, Lady Sings the Blues. Now here we have Richard Pryor again. Obviously, Lady Sings the Blues, the wonderful Diana Ross playing Billie Holiday. We have Billy Williams. This is, in the Black community, this is a phenomenal classic film. Movie. But it was one of those moments where youngish Richard Pryor, who had been in movies before, sort of really wants to show his chops. He's funny in that movie, but man, he has a absolutely heartbreaking scene in that movie. He's the piano player guy. And he, it doesn't go well for him. And Richard plays this death scene. Oh my gosh. It's absolutely fantastic. He's amazing. He's amazing in that scene in that movie. So yeah, Lady Sings the Blues. Of course, what was it? I guess it would have been last award season. We had Andra Day, young actress nominated for playing Billie Holiday at a certain period in her life, and she was really, really wonderful. But Diana Ross, young Diana Ross, had to inhabit that span of Billie Holiday's life in that movie, and she really killed it, and she did all her own singing too.
We've also got a couple of Paramount pictures here that are part of their Paramount Select library, or the Paramount Presents, I should say. Paramount Presents, which is a Jan de Bont's remake of The Haunting, which I'm not overly fond of, but some people tend to be fans of it, so that's there. And then also the VistaVision Last Train from Gun Hill with Kirk Douglas and Anthony Quinn, which is a really pretty terrific old Western. Looks beautiful here. I would love a 4K of this. But the VistaVision on this Blu-ray is just really lovingly mastered. They did a great job, top notch. And Kirk Douglas Westerns, you can do no wrong.
No.
Douglas with Anthony Quinn, you're
Sturgis, yeah. Yeah.
So let's go to some Sony titles here. Here's some Sony MOD titles. We got Sally Field again and Tom Hanks in Punchline.
Oh, I like that movie a lot more than some people. It's really funny. Sally Field playing this sort of like everyday housewife, married to John Goodman, and got the kids, the whole thing. But at night, she goes out and does stand up. Tom Hanks playing this doctor. He might be in medical school, but I think he's a young doctor. And at night, he goes out and does stand up. I think Mark Rydell in that film directed it too. Is that a Mark Rydell film?
No, it's not. It's a David Seltzer film. But Mark Rydell is in it.
He's in it. He plays the guy. There's a period when stand-up was just this thing there. And what's funny about that movie is how funny the jokes that Sally Field tells. She's because she's doing these jokes and she's buying jokes from these sort of like old school Catskill type cats and diners, writing jokes on napkins. And it's just, I don't know. It's a movie that worked for me back in the day. I don't think it was a big hit, but I loved it.
What about Fun with Dick and Jane? George Segal and Jane Fonda from what year was it? 1975? Yeah.
There was a moment when these sort of sophisticated movies, they remade that movie too. I think with Jim Carrey and Tia Leone. Not so good, but this one, there was a moment when these sort of sophisticated movies were the thing, and they were about, middle class people living their lives, doing stuff. And it was just, these were really, really good movies. And I really love that movie, Fun with Dick and Jane.
Really interesting bunch of people who wrote the screenplay. David Giler, Jerry Belson, who, by the way, had a hand in Close Encounters. People forget that. And Mordecai Rickler. That's an interesting story by Gerald Geiser. So, I mean, and Peter Bart produced this. You know that?
I did not know
that. Peter Bart of Variety. My goodness. Crazy. Like Father, Like Son, one of the body switching movies. Dudley Moore and Kirk Cameron.
Man, there was a run of those there for a while.
Good heavens!
I get. No, I was gonna say it started with Big, but no, it goes. You can go further back than that.
Yeah.
But there was a run of those in the '80s, man.
I love Dudley Moore, and I could care less about Kirk Cameron, but boy, this is weird. And by the way, the screenplay was by Lorne Cameron. I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not related. Okay. The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking, the Ken Anakin movie from when was this? Let's see. It's got to be 69, 70, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, whenever it is. Anyway, the New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking. What are we to make of this phenomenon from Sweden that just will not go away?
Well, that's what it was, right? Back
this is 1980 something. Anyway,
yeah. Really? The New Adventures.
The New Adventures. This is the New Adventures. Yeah.
So, but still, as a part of that phenomenon, that was just the most bizarre thing. I mean, as a kid, I remember, watching these movies and they were dubbed, of course, and they were just completely and wholly out of sync with all of this sort of bizarre shenanigans going on in them. But there they are.
Yeah. We got two kind of feminist themed films, Girl Interrupted, which won Angelina Jolie her Academy Award, and then 55 Steps with Hilary Swank and Helena Bonham Carter. Tim, I don't remember 55 Steps.
I don't either. I do remember Girl Interrupted. That was a big deal.
Girl Interrupted was a big deal. I mean, Winona Ryder was the thing, but then Angelina Jolie kind of came out of nowhere and won an Oscar for that. And, I'd forgotten James Mangold directed this.
Yeah.
This was the film that kind of put him on the map. And now he's injuring Harrison Ford on the new Indiana Jones film.
This is
what he's doing.
Back in 99, 2000, something like that, man.
Yeah, something like that. And then, so 55 Steps, this is, Jeffrey Tambor's in this and he's really quite good in it, but I don't remember this movie in any way, shape or form at all whatsoever. But it is, it's an interesting, one of those psychiatric ward movies, female friendship buddy movie. One of them, I kind of Rain Man-y a little bit with Helena Bonham Carter overacting a bit.
And Jeffrey Tambor, because Jeffrey Tambor is in Girl Interrupted.
Yes.
And I tell you who else is in Girl Interrupted. And, this guy, I knew last time I saw this movie was in 1999, but I did not, so I hadn't forgotten, but I did not know at the time that Elizabeth Moss is in Girl Interrupted.
Yeah.
I did know that Brittany Murphy, the late Brittany Murphy, I remember she was in Girl Interrupted back then. But yeah, Jeffrey Tambor was in that movie too, along with Angelina and Winona. So,
Well, it's, mostly these movies about somebody in the system who's, usually someone who's wrongly imprisoned and an attorney has to come in and they become friends with their attorney and the whole thing. I mean, we've seen a lot of those. Murder in the First was that thing with Kevin Bacon and Christian Slater. More recently, the Jamie Foxx thing. With Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx.
Oh yeah, Just Mercy. Yeah,
Just Mercy. So we get a lot of these, and this is one of those with Helena Bonham Carter as a psychiatric patient and Hilary Swank as her attorney. Basically, it's one of those movies, but it's fine. It's well acted. I just don't remember this movie at all. No. I don't. But Billy August directed it. So there. Yeah, I mean, there it is. I guess this is it. This came out relatively recently, but I have no recollection of it.
Sometimes
sometimes if it's not on one of our film week weeks, it's like whatever. All right, here's the last batch of these Universal titles. Now, the American Pie movies. We've got American Pie, American Pie 2, American Reunion, American Wedding. All of them in their unrated versions. These were a big deal at the time. Full disclosure, at least one of them was DP'd by my good friend Lloyd Ahern, and the cinematography is awesome. I think it was American Wedding was the one he shot, which was directed by Jesse Dillon, who hasn't gone on to make a lot of movies. But question is, does this franchise still hold our attention, or is the whole pie thing really kind of done?
Well, look, we're going all the way back to 1999 now. Those Weeks brothers, Paul and Chris. So, Jason and Chris Klein, look, I'm not sure that you can get away with a whole lot of these jokes anymore. I mean, the central joke, with the hole in the pie, I'm not, and certainly even if you can get away with it, I'm not sure how funny it is. Charming cast of characters, actors, a lot of them, have gone on to do some interesting stuff. This all seems like fodder for a sitcom to me. Maybe a sassy Netflix series rather than a series of major motion pictures.
Yeah.
They were, spanning that some odd 20 odd years, however long it's been there. Yeah.
All right, couple of British films here that I am hugely fond of. I still love these movies, but Tim, you tell me, do these still live in the culture? Notting Hill and Billy Elliot.
I have no objections at all in my memory to either one of those films. I love them both of those films, particularly Billy Elliot. And Billy Elliot also, because Billy Elliot is representative of a very particular period. Billy Elliot is not set contemporary to its time. It's set during this period during the coal strikes and whatnot in the UK. So that's interesting in and of itself. But Notting Hill, which was contemporary to its moment, whenever I think about Notting Hill, I just still get a bit of a knot in my stomach, and it's that beautiful sequence where we go through the change of the seasons, and
oh my gosh, when he's walking through that visual effects thing, that was beautiful.
I think both of those movies are movies you can queue up and enjoy just as much today as you could back then. I kind of think
I agree. Stephen Daldry came of age as a director with Billy Elliot, and now he's doing every episode of The Crown.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. So we got some sort of 19th century Americana stories here as well. We've got the Sofia Coppola remake of The Beguiled, which aims to put sort of a more female-centric spin on the story that was originally directed by Clint Eastwood. We got the old John Wayne, Kirk Douglas Western, The War Wagon. And then we've got Taproots with Van Heflin and Susan Hayward, and amazing cast of supporting actors like Ward Bond and Boris Karloff and Julie London, which is this George Marshall directed kind of melodrama that all takes place in the 19th century. It's it feels a little bit dated. Anything there, Tim, that you think is worth paying attention to?
Well, we'll say this about The Beguiled. The 1971 Clint Eastwood film and Sophia's film with Nicole Kidman and Kirsten Dunst in 2017.
And Colin Farrell playing the original Eastwood part. Yeah.
Particularly the Colin Farrell thing, because he's playing that with his natural accent. And I back in 19 whatever, I read that book when I was in junior high. That's an adaptation of a novel. And the Coppola film is truer to the book than the Eastwood film, particularly that thing to do with Colin, because that happened a lot. The character in her film was paid by a rich man to go fight in that war for him, that Civil War.
Yeah.
He had no stake in the fight whatsoever from the North or the South. He was simply poor, and you could do that. This was a thing that actually happened quite often. And that was brought over from the book. And I thought that was really, really interesting that Sophia knew to bring that over from the book. She made it a bit more of a feminist sort of thing, rather than just a bunch of, teenage girls in heat, which is more or less what was going on in Clint's movie. Which is kind of okay with me too. But getting the little pieces of history, right? I appreciate that, but I still like that Clint Eastwood film.
Yeah, I like them both.
Yeah.
I will say this about The War Wagon, which I think warrants a little bit of attention. It's basically a gold heist movie. It's John Wayne and Kirk Douglas trying to steal gold from a land baron and his very heavily armored train. But whenever I see it's okay. But whenever I see this marquee with John Wayne and Kirk Douglas, I'm always reminded of the story that Kirk Douglas would always tell about when John Wayne bawled him out for playing Van Gogh in Vincent Minnelli's Lust for Life.
Yeah.
I mean, because and it was serious. Like John Wayne pulled him inside and said, "What are you doing playing a painter? Guys like us do not play painters." Like there was a whole thing. Like in Wayne's mind, being a painter, if it didn't mean that you were gay, it meant you were almost gay.
Yeah, it was not a man. You're not playing a manly man. Yeah,
not
for sure.
Like men do not paint.
Yeah,
like real men do not paint,
and they certainly don't go crazy and cut off their. Men don't do any of these things. Yeah, what I thought was interesting is the way Douglas took all of that. He was just like, wow, you just and yes, look at those careers, and therein lies the difference,
Yes.
John went out being who did he go out? He went out being
Rooster Cogburn.
Rooster Cogburn, yeah,
basically. Yeah. Well, the last three here, we've got Walter Matthau and Julie Andrews in Little Miss Marker, which I think is a really sweet little gem that oftentimes gets unfairly forgotten. This is a cool little film, and it's got great supporting cast: Tony Curtis, Bob Newhart, Lee Grant, all joined in on this. You can't not love that. The Seventh Son, or it's perhaps just Seventh Son, not no the on it, with Julianne Moore and Jeff Bridges, kind of was one of these big CGI things that flopped rather badly a couple of years ago. It's probably been about 5 or 6 years now. And, that's strictly for people that love that stuff. But also want to put a shout out for The Last Days, the Oscar-winning Steven Spielberg produced Shoah Foundation Holocaust doc directed by James Maul, which has been remastered from the original 35 millimeter film and re-released on Blu-ray, MOD. Won Best Documentary then. It would probably win it again now. It is a deeply, deeply moving movie. And, the eyewitness testimony is running away from us very fast now. We're within the next couple of decades, we'll be hitting, these people will be in their 90s. And, by the mid 2030s, they're going to be gone. Yeah. So, these are important testimonies to have. Yeah. All right. Tim, let's, want to cover the criterions here. Let's hit these criterions. Let's start with Pariah.
I was going to say, wow, what an auspicious launch of a career. Yeah. That movie was for Dee Rees, Pariah, 2011 film, about a young black gay teenager, coming of age, story, beautifully done.
10 years, dude.
It goes by so fast. Kim Wayans in that movie. I think that's the last time I've seen Kim Wayans in a movie playing her mother. It's just a lovely film about a Brooklyn teenager coming of age as a young gay woman. Dee, of course, has gone on to do a whole bunch of other things, but one of them, of course, being Mud.
Yeah, Mudbound.
Mudbound, thank you.
Yeah.
Which is just a powerful film, set post-war, during the war in the South, and David O'Yell, just really, really, really good movie. An auspicious beginning of Dee Rees' career.
I remember the LAFCA voting that year. That's where I knew that this movie really had kind of carved itself a place. We get a lot of indies every year, and we talk about them, like The Nest, this year, where you think it's going to have some awards potential and it just doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. But I remember, Pariah was one of those movies that year where everybody was kind of talking about it, but nobody thought that anybody else would be talking about it, right? Yeah. Everyone sort of thought it was their little personal discovery, but it's nobody else is going to watch this. And suddenly we're in the voting, and it's like Pariah, and it's rippling through the room. And it didn't wind up winning any awards from this, but it was in the mix. Yeah. It was very strongly in the mix, wound up really kind of carving its place, and people, I think, saw this amazing talent. And Dee Rees has definitely carved herself a place. She's done very, very well for herself, and she gets the Criterion treatment now. Yeah, she is immortalized with Criterion. Here's one that's a little bit from left field: is Tiny, The Life of Aaron Blackwell, and Streetwise, together on one unified disc. These are both movies that were co-directed by Mary Ellen Mark and Martin Bell. And I'm not overly familiar with either of them, to be honest. They're separated by decades. Streetwise was made in 1984.
That was the early 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, 84. And then they made Tiny, The Life of Aaron Blackwell in 2016.
I don't know Tiny, but Streetwise, I remember that was a really, really, it's set in like Seattle or something like. It's just following these street kids. Yeah. Just following these street kids all around Seattle. It's really heavy.
And Martin Bell is, basically a documentarian, but Mary Ellen Mark is a photographer. And so you're getting a really interesting mix of sensibilities here. Cheryl McCall actually co-directed Streetwise with him. She's the one more, but she was not involved in Tiny. Mm-hmm. But Streetwise is a really, really fascinating movie. And Aaron Blackwell, I thought, was very, very interesting because it was actually begun roughly around the same time, and then it took them like 30 years to complete the film. And Blackwell's a really interesting figure.
Aaron Blackwell is one of the characters, figures. Yeah, people being followed in Streetwise. Yeah,
it's sort of a semi sequel of sorts, but a very, very rough life. Addiction, and she's a single mom, and all of the stuff that sort of goes into that. So as kind of an overarching portrait, these two films are really kind of an amazing tapestry divided by all these decades. And it's one of those unusual Criterion releases that you sort of don't expect. Visions of 8 is rather perfectly timed with the Olympics coming out. Yeah. This is from the Munich 1972 Olympics, and it is 8 different films by different world-class directors, including previously mentioned John Schlesinger. Yeah, you've got Milos Forman did the decathlon, Claude Lelouch the losers, Schlesinger did the longest, Connie Chikawa the fastest, Michael Flager the women, Arthur Penn did the highest, Mai Zetterling did the strongest, and Yuri Ozerov the beginning. 8 really cool Olympic movies.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Not to mention, some of the people we're looking at in those Olympics would include folks like Bruce Jenner then. Caitlyn Jenner now, Olga Korbut. I mean, these are it's funny, all these names.
Olga for sure, yeah.
Avery Brundage, who's like the director of the entire, the United States Olympic Committee for the entirety of the modern Olympic era up into the 70s. Like 50 years, he was the guy that ran all of that stuff. So yeah, it's really fascinating.
And then the last one, which almost makes me break into tears even mentioning it, the Masaki Kobayashi's The Human Condition trilogy, which is released here finally on Blu-ray as just The Human Condition. So they're presenting it as if it was a single film. And it really is a single film. I mean, it is. I like to consider it the greatest trilogy ever made, and I know that's high praise because you're going up against things like Blue, White, and Red, the Kieslowski trilogy, obviously Lord of the Rings. I mean, there's a lot of heavy hitting stuff in there. But The Human Condition, for those who don't know, Kobayashi is somewhat semi-autobiographical in this. His World War II experience kind of informs this, and each of these films is about 3 hours long. And the whole saga is nearly 10 hours long, and it is well worth setting aside a day and just watching this thing through if you can handle it emotionally. It is absolutely devastating, made in the late 50s into the early 60s. And it is effectively the saga of of one Japanese soldier and his journey through all of these episodes during World War II. And most movies that Americans see about World War II tend to be the American point of view, which is to be expected, or the British point of view. It's always the Allied point of view. And if the Axis point of view is depicted, it is depicted without a great deal of humanity. These are the bad guys. It's a good thing that we beat them, and all quiet on the Western Front being the exception. But
maybe does both.
Maybe Das Boot for sure. But yeah, that's a great example. But the human condition is just devastating because this is based very much in what many Japanese soldiers actually experienced. And I can't emphasize this too strongly that, you know, we have this impression that the Japanese were all of these crazed, cultish, you know, suicidal, kamikaze warriors who dug themselves into, you know, caves and wouldn't come out for years, and, you know, unless you flamethrowered them out, and they were going to die for the emperor and they had to be deprogrammed.
Oh, it became a part of the the storyline, the narrative storyline, even in well post-war television of the 70s and 60s and 70s. Literally stories about these Japanese soldiers on an island 5 years after the war. You know, still holding out. It became narratives and storylines. Yeah,
entirely. And we miss just how many stories there are of these guys who didn't want to be there. They didn't want to fight. They knew that the cause was wrong. They knew the cause was lost. They had questions. Some were afraid. You know, they're human beings like everybody else. And we sometimes lose sight of that humanity. And, that is what drives all nearly 10 hours of the Human Condition trilogy. It is masterful filmmaking. And, you know, all due respect to people who love Kurosawa, when people ask me who's your favorite Japanese filmmaker, I always say it's Kobayashi. Far and away, it's Kobayashi because of this and Qui-Gon. You know, if I were a filmmaker and I could say, you know, I don't need to make 20 movies, I don't need to make 10 movies. If I could just say I made The Human Condition and Qui-Gon, I could die and go to heaven, and be proud of my life. So there's that. Tim, let me kick through a few docs here real quickly because we do have a few interesting docs. I know you were a big fan of Journeys Through French Cinema, the Tavernier saga. That's an 8-part monster.
Because we lost him not too terribly long ago.
Not so long ago. That's on Blu-ray now from Cohen.
Well, what's interesting about that series is it's him talking mostly, and he himself, you know, as a filmmaker, as a person, as a journalist and a scholar, he is a connection between the sort of post-war new wave and everything that would come after that in French cinema, including his films. Listening to him talk about these things being a sort of direct connection is what's fascinating about that movie, because he has these sort of insights that lend to both eras in French cinema. So that's what I think that I love the most about that. It's about him and his films, but he is a scholar of all of these things, and he's the connective tissue. He's literally the connective tissue between these things. Who did he work for? He worked for
he was an assistant director for
but you know, it's out of my head. But I'll figure it out.
So I mean, a number of great directors he was an assistant director for, but it was Le Samurai.
Melville. Thank you, Melville. Thank you.
He was Melville's assistant.
You know, director. So you know, and those are the kind of when you work for folks like that, those are the kind of insights that you bring. Plus, he was a child of cinema at that particular period of time when Godard and Rivette and all of these filmmakers were doing the things that they do, and while at the same time. Because all of them were children of American cinema, you know, Ford, and so he was sort of taking all of these things in from a perspective that just most people didn't get. And then he brought all of that stuff to bear in his cinema. So because when you look at his cinema, Bertrand's cinema, what do we see? We see everything. We see all possible modes of filmmaking that he has at his disposal.
They just had a tribute to all of his films on Criterion Channel not long ago, and I watched Captain Conan again, which is just so amazing. It's just one of the best World War I movies I've ever seen. We got a bunch of kind of biographical docs here, which I'll go through real quickly. We have the very highly acclaimed Oliver Sacks' His Own Life by Rick Burns, not Ken Burns, but Rick this time, who is also a very, very fine documentarian. Which is lovely. You know, Oliver Sacks sat down in 2015 for a whole bunch of interviews, to kind of revisit his life. And this just is so comprehensive and,
world-renowned neurologist, neuroscientist, neurologist. Yeah.
You get a wonderful sense of him. Dali in Search of Immortality is a great documentary about the life of Salvador Dali and his work and his art and just the madness that made this guy genius. I mean, a normal person, no, and thank God for that.
Yeah,
because we're the beneficiaries of that.
I love the way that film connects Dali all the way back to Disney. They did a lot of work together. Walt Disney and Salvador Dali, beautiful, beautiful stuff there. So a lot of times we forget that he's just great, fine artist, but he liked cartoons.
That's right. He sure did. We have Moby Doc. I don't know if Moby's old enough to justify a fully biographical doc, but boy, he's a weird dude. And people kind of pile on him a little bit too much, all that Natalie Portman was my girlfriend stuff. And Natalie Portman tweets out and says, "Yeah, excuse me. Well, okay, maybe not."
And in the same way that Brooke Shields was Michael Jackson's girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, standing next to them doesn't make them your girlfriend. You have to actually have a relationship.
That's a great analogy. But Moby, is a guy who had a really difficult childhood and is a really fascinating artist. So, it may be premature, but that's an interesting doc.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Billie Holiday earlier, and Billie is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful tribute to an amazing icon in American music history.
Yeah.
I think sometimes Billie gets a little bit lost in the shadow of other singers some of her contemporaries. And, Ella Fitzgerald tends to cast a very, very long shadow. But, if you listen to Billie's voice and her music, and I'm glad, we had the recent movie as well, really ripe for rediscovery and to sort of own her place. This is a beautiful movie.
Yeah. And that movie and this movie are something of a corrective to the sort of notion that we have as Billie as being a tragic, drug-addled figure.
Yes.
More complicated.
He's overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, yes,
much more complicated
than that.
And then as long as we're on the music topic, The Changin' Times of Ike White by filmmaker Dan Vernon. Ike White, kind of a pivotal figure in soul, but not one that is widely known, sort of more influential than famous. And Changin' Times was his big album, which was released in 1976. And again, very, very troubled life, but a prodigy, an amazing talent and great music and deeply influential, but one of these, just a lot of demons, a lot of demons. And then we also have Beautiful Darling, The Life and Times of Candy Darling, Andy Warhol superstar. Candy Darling, like with Billie, I think is overshadowed by her demons as well and her association with Andy Warhol. So it's nice to sort of get a little bit of a corrective here as well. Interviews here with a lot of people who knew her, including Julie Newmar and Fran Lebowitz and John Waters. You realize what a swath of culture she cut across. And wonderful narration, her own words narrated by Chloe Sevigny. So that's also a really a very, very touching and important film.
Yeah.
Tim, let's talk about Nation Time for a second here, because we are both big fans of William Greaves, and who tends to be known primarily for Symbiopsychotaxiplasm, which of course got the Criterion Collection. But this is the 80-minute fully restored cut of Nation Time, his Gary, Indiana documentary about the 1972 National Black Political Convention.
Oh man, your poetry, Mir Baraka. You're reading Langston Hughes and Charles Diggs. It's just, the music. It's funny.
Jesse Jackson
and Walter Fauntleroy, all of these, Coretta Scott, all of Bobby Seale, all of these sort of Harry Belafonte, all of these sort of figures from the period who show up in this film, documented in this film, very often reciting poems or other folks' poems in places where you will never ever see them again. The Jackson family, all just it's just an amazing sort of thing. So anyway, this is like what 1971, 72 because it was the 72 thing. So it's just a fascinating thing. So glad that it's been documented. And there were these voices here sort of across the political spectrum, really. This is like just not some just sort of like left wing sort of rally.
No.
It's again far and away more complicated than that.
It's a tapestry.
Yeah.
It's a tapestry. And I'm going to share it again. I know I've shared it before, but I love sharing my William Greaves story, which is that when LAFCA got behind, thanks to Ray Green's initiative, got behind the Films That Got Away series, where, movies that had never gotten a proper theatrical release. And on our first series of that, we included Symbiocytotoxicplasm.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly thereafter, I was in New York, piggybacking on my wife's per diem while she was working on the Steve Buscemi film. And there was a William Greaves series at Tribeca, and I went down and saw it, and he was there. And I just went up to him and I said, Mr. Greaves, I wasn't there when you were in Los Angeles for the Films That Got Away, but just wanted to let you know, I'm one of the people on that that was on that committee that programmed Symbiocytotoxicplasm. And before I could even finish my sentence, the man hugged me.
Yeah.
He threw his arms around me. Total stranger. It was so touching, and I'm so moved to this day that he truly an incredible, kind, brilliant, gentle man. And I think perhaps that may be why he didn't have a more forceful career or a longer career, because he's one of the soft artists.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to have that lion anger that comes out to beat your way through, and he just wasn't that guy. But Nation Time is a really beautiful chronicle and document and tapestry of a very, very important historical moment.
Yeah.
Tim, Assassins. I know you're a fan of Assassins, this freaking lunatic, insane story of the women that killed Kim Jong-un's brother.
Because I got to tell you, it's really amazing sometimes. A news story comes into and you watch the news story and you pay attention to it and you think and you think you understand it and all this kind of stuff. And these filmmakers go out and they go looking around that whole situation. And we find out a whole different reality about what we thought, who these two young women were in the first place. And they were literally just that, these two young women trying to make it as actress model-y types. And that's all it is. And this almost, if we didn't know it were all true and resulted in the death of Kim's, what was it, cousin, uncle, brother, whatever.
It was his brother.
It was one of his brothers, right?
Yeah, like a half brother.
Yeah, well, I guess they're all. If we didn't know this were all true, if you were to tell me this story as a story, I'd say, that sounds like an interesting episode of, 1960s Mission Impossible or something episode. But it's not. It actually happened, and it's just fascinating the way it unravels. This story. So Assassins, and that's what it's about. It's about the truth, what is likely the reality behind that assassination of Kim's half brother and the young women who it was pinned on, and how these filmmakers reveal the reality of what happened there.
So a few others I'll get through so we can get to some new stuff. We have some really good new stuff to get to today. We've got It's Not a Burden, which is a recent and wonderful Gravitas Ventures documentary about how to handle the aging parents, aging people in your life, aging loved ones.
Yeah.
And it is having done this, I full disclosure, I cared for my mother and my aunt in their final days, and dementia in both cases, and it is just it's not easy. And this really is very therapeutic for anybody who has done it or who may need to do it. This will lift your soul, and it'll help you sort of find a way through. It's very nicely done. It's very touching, very humanistic, and I deeply appreciated it. Also, want to give a wonderful shout out. Complete conflict of interest here, but Ottolenghi and the Cakes of Versailles is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful documentary. Now, I have to absolutely point out as well that Laura Gabbert, who directed this, is an acquaintance of mine. She's also a UCLA grad. She was a graduate student at UCLA when I was an undergrad. I talk to her every once in a while. We have a lot of friends and acquaintances in common. And so I have to point that out. I do know the filmmaker. But that being said, she's a very, very good filmmaker and really, really superb. And this is just an exquisite look at Chef Yotam Ottolenghi, who is trying to basically bring his Versailles sensibilities to life as in basically the form of a cake for the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And as kind of unreal and strange as that may sound, it's this amazing artistic crossover endeavor that is captured so beautifully here, because you are exposed to what it means to be a pastry chef. And don't assume for a second that pastry chefs are not true artists. They may be the greatest artists in the world because they're creating art that will be eaten. It's going to go away. It's like people who do sandcastles. It's going to go away. And I can't imagine a more painful thing and yet a more gratifying thing than to do something that you know will be gone. It's going to disappear. All your work will be eaten. And the people eating it aren't eating it with the same gusto that you used to make it.
Yeah.
It takes a few minutes to eat something. But anyway, Anna Lengi and the Cakes of Versailles, pretty great. And then Mayor. Tim, did you see Mayor, the David Ossett film about Musa Hadid, the Christian mayor of Ramallah in the West Bank?
I don't think I saw that one.
I had to cover this one for Film Week as well. It's really fascinating. I mean, what's nice is that this is not a take sides kind of Israeli-Palestinian doc, which, too much of our current politics gets sort of torn apart in documentaries. This isn't saying these people are right, these people are wrong. It's him. It's a profile of this guy who is a Palestinian mayor of a major city, Ramallah, and he is Christian. And this deals with some incredibly complex issues, and it doesn't sort of try to give you an answer. It just it lets you wrestle with it. And boy, it really is. It's a very, very important film, and I really highly recommend it. And then the last two, well, let's do these last three here. Narratives of Modern Genocide is pretty brutal, but this is a combination. This is from PBS and NPR. This is just a collage of accounts of people who survived genocides and in various shapes. Genocide doesn't have to kill millions. It can still kill thousands. It's the intent and the perpetrators that define it as genocide. So, you have accounts from people who survived the killing fields and the school children massacre in Burundi. Absolutely essential to see that we keep trying to make it not happen again. Love Express is about the disappearance of Valerian I can never pronounce his name. Borochik, the famous exploitation director. Borovchik, I guess is the correct pronunciation. But this is from Altered Innocence, the exploitation label. And people may not have known that in the 1970s, Valerian, who after making all of these very famous exploitation films, basically kind of disappeared from public. And they have some really interesting interviews in here with people, including Neil Jordan and Terry Gilliam, who give you some great insight into this manic figure. And then lastly, Jazz on a Summer's Day, one of the great documentaries about jazz. Yeah. To me, this is like definitive. Everybody who was anybody in jazz from its inception until 1959, when this movie was made, is depicted here. And I just think it's wonderful. I love this movie.
Fantastic.
All right, Tim, where do we go?
Want to look at some of these 4Ks, some of the 4K business?
Yeah, let's do the 4Ks.
At the top of which I see Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. So what do we look like? If ever anything should have been put out on 4K, needs to have been put out on 4K at some time. This is a movie that's meant to pop, crackle, and just jump right the hell off the screen. What does it look like?
It looks amazing. They just cranked up the color. I mean, the purple hair, the green hair, the red mushrooms, everything that just sparkles in this thing. I don't know that this ever looked this good on 35 millimeter. I think this is really a super, and they don't overdo it. It's really wonderful. The Wonka kids, all grown up, do the commentary, which is a lot of fun. And, it's got extras on it, much of which people have already seen. Story of Willy Wonka and the pure imagination. The story of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the documentary is really excellent. Pretty much the only thing you need. But yeah, the movie looks great. 4K is fantastic. There was a nice Blu-ray box set that had a lot of goodies in it previously released. But I think, you can double dip and keep them both. Keep the extras on that one, but watch the movie on this one. And because this is Warner, you get a Movies Anywhere code, so you can add it to all of your digital lockers.
Does Roald Dahl does he ever do a commentary or an interview or anything like that? Because nothing from him out there. He wrote nothing. I always thought it was interesting. He actually wrote the book, wrote the screenplay too.
Yeah,
for that. In the Line of Fire, the 1993 In the Line of Fire, Wolfgang and Clint Eastwood and John Malkovich and Rene Russo. I remember enjoying this movie so much. It was one of those because President Clinton was a big movie fan.
Yeah,
back then.
That's right.
And I remember him talking about how much he loved this movie, and it was one of the things that made it quite popular at the time. How does it hold up?
It holds up, and this is how sick I am. This is what a deranged human being I am, because when I watched this movie again, I had the same thought that I had the first time, which was, that ceramic gun of John Malkovich's, that would work. I could totally make one of those and sneak that on a plane. I could totally do that. This is how lame I am. And I'm going to be on a plane in a few weeks. And I'm putting this out there in the world. I could just see watch me at the airport getting pulled aside by the agents. Hey, come over here. Sorry. We listen to your podcast. We're gonna have to take you aside and question you. Oh crap!
I'm absolutely positive they had all kinds of stuff that they can sniff that business out with now, but it was a hell of an idea back in the time. Yeah,
it really it's a terrific movie. It's a great pairing of talent. Wolfgang Peterson was exactly the right guy to do it. And again, Movies Anywhere, you get your digital locker code. Indiana Jones 4-movie collection. We're enjoying the 40-year anniversary now of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Karen Allen has been having to go on all kinds of radio shows and be humiliated by trying to explain how Indiana Jones was not a pedophile and he did not groom Marion. Shut up. Just because of that one line, I was a child. People with no sense of proportion go, a child? What kind of child? How old were you? Shut up.
Yes, relax, everybody. Relax.
Anyway, these movies hold up. I watched Temple of Doom again the other day, 4K. Yep. I watched it on Movies Anywhere. And, I don't know if I ever told you, but when I was an usher at the National Theater, which has now been demolished, I worked when that movie opened. That opened at the National. And I remember we had 6 preview screenings, 6 private screenings for press and for the studio and all these people. And I made sure that I didn't have to work any of those nights so that I could show up and sneak in and watch all. I had seen the film a half dozen times by opening day. To this day, I can still sing Anything Goes in Mandarin. Thank you, Kate Capshaw.
Okay.
I can do it.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But I love, that movie I particularly have a soft spot for, despite all of the criticism of it. That's the movie that gave us the PG-13. We can blame it for that. But I still have a soft spot for Temple of Doom.
Oh, the thing with the heart. They have the heart with the.
It's all taken from old movies anyway.
Yeah, exactly. If the kids in the 30s saw that at the theater. Nobody. Is that Odenkirk movie, which I actually rather enjoyed. It's
like it's John Wick with a nerd.
Yeah. And frankly, a little bit more quote unquote realistic than the John Wick films. It's more about fighting than guns. But it walks the same pathway. What I like about it is that Bob is playing against type.
Totally.
Completely and totally. And yet, the way he has designed the character, you believe it. You believe that he is that guy beneath all of that stuff. He even looks great. He's lean
looks fantastic.
the choreography for all those fight scenes that he gets himself involved in are really excellent.
And here's what I particularly love is that the team they put together is exactly the kind of, they cast him against type, but they cast the team against type. It's Odenkirk, plus his contact, played by the RZA, plus his dad, played by Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Now that's a really, that's a fascinating group of people. Of course, why would any of them turn that down? Odenkirk gets to play an action star. Christopher Lloyd isn't being offered action star parts. You know, he's old, and the RZA is always down to blow something up. So why would any of them just turn that down? It's really terrific. I love this movie. I think I like it better than John Wick.
Yeah. Michael Ironside walking around that movie. I would love anything Michael Ironside's walking around in. Godzilla versus King Kong. Again, this one. Look, I don't know. This was big. Millie Bobby Brown running around this movie. I don't know, whatever. At this point, with the Godzilla and the King Kong movies, you know, they all started to look and sound and feel kind of the same. They're all meant to be a part of this universe, you know, that they're creating. It's not that I don't like it. It's just look, you create a situation here where you have what are basically two heroic characters. King Kong is a heroic character, and Godzilla at this point is a heroic character. And they have to figure out a way to set them against each other and then to turn that around and to team them up and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know, it's the machinations is just too much going on here.
Yeah, and CGI has just kind of jumped the shark in some ways. It's just too much of it, and they're having too much fun with it. And I don't know, it doesn't. You know, I'm not the audience for these, but you know, hey, again, Movies Anywhere. You get your Movies Anywhere code, knock yourself out. And the last 4K here is Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I mean, the first Final Fantasy was not very good, and somehow we're up to 7 of these things, and they're still not very good, but, I don't know. I guess somebody loves them.
Now, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I'm out of it. I'm just not going to say anything. Because there was already a Final Fantasy VII anyway, right? There was a previous Final Fantasy VII.
I can't.
And this is like a remake of the 7th Final Fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's and you know it's Japanese animation, but it's not anime because it's CG animation. So it's you know, it really kind of lives in a different place. It's sort of tangential to the world of anime, but look, a lot of people love it. The games are popular. I guess the movies are supposed to be an extension of the game verse. So whatever it is, it is what it is. I begrudge nobody enjoying those movies. I simply don't get it. But there you go. It's 4K, man. It looks great.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Some new movies.
Yeah, why
not? Did you see Boogie by chance?
Boogie? I don't think I saw that one.
So Boogie, I kind of want to make a quick little mention of Boogie because Boogie is kind of an important thing. Because Boogie, first of all, Boogie includes the last screen performance of Pop Smoke before he was very sadly killed. The rapper Pop Smoke, who's very, very good in this. But the whole idea of Boogie is the brainchild of Eddie Huang, and Eddie Huang, for those who don't know, Eddie Huang is kind of this amazing hyphenate. He's Eddie Huang basically is the creator of Off the Boat or Fresh Off the Boat TV show, but he's also a major restaurant figure in New York and kind of a more of a cultural icon. And the thing is that Eddie is a very street Asian guy. He is a very New York street guy who happens to be Asian. And there's an incongruity about that he's got a lot of flack for, which is, you're appropriating urban culture and all this.
Black culture, which is like just such bullshit, you know, particularly for anybody who's been to South Korea, who's been to, you know, that's just, anyway, go on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so this is basically Eddie's movie where he addresses that. And this is about a guy who is basically, you know, Alfred Boogie Chin, who is a guy that represents sort of who he is or wanted to be. And Boogie is, you know, he's Asian, but he's dreaming of being an NBA player, and he's really good at basketball, and he's very street, and he, you know, talks the talk, and he, you know, he has a thing for this girl who happens to be black. And so that's an issue as well. And so it really, and then there's his rival, Pop Smoke plays his basketball rival. So it's really kind of a fascinating snapshot of this cross-cultural soup that Eddie Huang himself comes from. And he's trying to tell a story that reconciles all these elements that he's caught a lot of flack for, to say, this is normal, this is New York, this is who these people are, and you can't expect them to sort of adhere to whatever, holes and diagrams that you want to culturally diagram for them. When you're born into New York, you're born into New York, and you're going to be what you're going to be. And sort of, I don't think the film is totally perfect in the way that it tries to tell that story. I think I just did a better job of it than the movie does. But I get what he was going for. And Taylor Takahashi, who plays Boogie, is really good. He's really good. And you don't necessarily like the guy. He's dislikable through a lot of this. He says things that are just totally inappropriate. The first thing that he says to Taylor Page, who plays his love interest in the film, is really misogynistic and insulting and offensive. And it's supposed to be, But I also want to put a shout out. Taylor Page is a wonderful actress.
Oh, I just I'm just so nuts about Taylor Page.
Oh, she is. Isn't she just wonderful? She can do so much with so little. And then there's also Siberia, the Abel Ferrara film with Willem Dafoe. Kind of a weird turn for Abel Ferrara. Did you catch this, Tim? This was a Grindstone release. I
don't think I know that one. Abel and Willem hang out together in the movie world every now and again, and the results are usually interesting.
Yeah, this is I think maybe their third film,
something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of it's sort of an out of the way. It's not a survivalist movie, but it's a movie about a loner. I guess maybe this is the way to do it. It's sort of a philosophical thriller about what it means to be alone, to be alienated from the world. Probably not the best way of outlining it, but Defoe is very good in it. It feels a little bit undercooked, and I'm not sure that Ferrara really had, all of his ducks in a row when he made it, but it's not bad.
Abel used to be one of my favorite directors, man. Going King of New York and, Bad Lieutenant, even his Body Snatchers movie. To my mind, I like his Body Snatchers movie. It's certainly the most modern Body Snatchers movie of the 3 or 4 that's been done.
It sure is, and that's another one of my favorite Cannes memories. Was when he that was 93.
Yeah,
I was there in 93, and I remember that's where he was in his element. He was thrilled. He thought he was going to be the next big Hollywood thing, and he again, I apologize for long time listeners who've never heard these stories, but he went up there and was started making jokes about how, like, hey, did you see they already gave Jane Campion the Palme d'Or? They gave it to her when she arrived at the airport, because everyone knew the piano was going to win. And it wound up co-winning with Farewell My Concubine, but everyone knew. And then Alexander Walker, the famous British film critic, who was also a biographer of Stanley Kubrick's and a good friend of Kubrick's, Alexander Walker stands up and starts laying into Abel Ferrara for overlooking all the positive aspects of body snatching, that it makes people more sociable, it makes them more friendly. It was like this weird, surreal moment. I was sitting like 10 feet away, and I looked at him. I'm like, who the hell is this lunatic? And my friend Bruce from Canada, he goes, that's Alexander Walker. I'm like, the Alexander Walker? Alexander Walker, the Kubrick Alexander Walker, is standing here making himself look like a lunatic 10 feet from me? What the hell's going on? This is weird. Well, that's Cannes. And Ferrara just laughed at it until the next person stood up, some Danish or Dutch or something, and said, I very much liked your Body Snatcher movie. And he goes, well, tell him that. And there was Abel Ferrara. That was the high point. But I agree. I think that is a good one. Any other new movies in the list here that you want to focus on, Tim?
Well, The Sound of Silence, of course, was noted this past awards season. Wait a minute, hold on. I'm thinking of a different movie. Give me a second here.
All good. I'll make a note.
I think I'll jump off at Trigger Point. Barry Pepper. Trigger Point, Brad Turner's film with Barry Pepper, Colm Fiore. Actually a pretty good movie. Hadn't thought about Barry Pepper in a while. Barry Pepper used to be sort of a fixture in Hollywood movies, usually playing bad guys. My favorite Barry Pepper film is 25th Hour. Spike Lee's show.
That's right.
But here, he's one of these special forces operative kind of guys. And he has to go out and do his thing. It's a pretty good movie. So far as these sort of movies go, Jane Eastwood and a few other folks in it. Barry Pepper and and Trigger Point.
I got a few here that I'll just go through real quickly. Omerta, the Act of Silence, is really, it's an interesting little sort of low budget drama, guy film, crime film, sort of kind of organized crime thing. But the what's really interesting about this to me is that despite the fact that it's just otherwise a totally negligible movie, it has Joe Estevez in it.
Yeah.
Who, those who don't know, Joe Estevez is the brother of Martin Sheen. Obviously never had Martin's career, but looks a lot like Martin and actually appears in Apocalypse Now uncredited, doing doubling work for Martin after Martin nearly killed himself with that whole little drunken mirror incident.
Yeah.
So what's funny is looking at Joe Estevez, who used to make a lot of kind of B-level action movies in the 90s, and you realize he's aged just like Martin.
Yeah.
Like he and Martin are really, they're almost twins. It's kind of weird. He's become like that guy. And then there's also Tony Hale, the very funny and clever Tony Hale in Eat Wheaties, which is like, I thought I was going to hate this movie within the first 10 minutes. And I wound up really kind of liking it. This is this bizarre, dark comedy about a really awkward, kind of messed up guy, sort of an office drone, not well connected, doesn't have good social skills. And he's called to be co-chair of his college reunion. And one of the people that he wants to bring in is Elizabeth Banks, who he was friends with in college. And so he kind of starts celebrity stalking her on social media, not realizing that his private comments to her are actually all public on her Facebook page. And when that goes public and blows up, it wrecks his life. And it's a really interesting look at how not being social media savvy can be a problem, a liability, but it also takes some very dark turns about what is and isn't celebrity. And, it's a really interesting movie ultimately. So I didn't like the first 10 minutes of it until I kind of got the tone. Once you get the tone, it's a good movie.
Dude.
Yeah.
This Above Suspicion, is that one of the, is this the one, is that Philip Noyce Above Suspicion that I'm thinking of? Because it is just it's the one with Emilia Clarke and Jack Houston. And it's interesting. I covered it on Film Week. It's interesting in this way. It's not a particularly fantastic movie, but the story is interesting. It's the story.
This is the correct.
This is that film. It's the story of the first
Johnny Knoxville.
With Johnny Knoxville sort of playing this sort of straight, sort of creepy, scary role, and Amelia doing this sort of Southern accent girl. It's all set in the early '80s, and it's the story of this FBI agent that Jack Houston is playing who commits a murder. And he's the first FBI agent in history to be, eventually caught and captured and convicted of actually committing murder. And the actual guys in the film, it's an interesting story. These sort of backward people doing all kinds of shady stuff, and she gets involved with him. He's married, and when he thinks it's all going to come out, he kills her. It's a whole thing, but it's really just an interesting story of this actual sort of historical event. And believe it or not, this happened like in I remember this story. So it was one of those stories that I think it made its way to like 60 Minutes or something like that. It's kind of a neat story and kind of a creepy movie. And, good work on Johnny Knoxville's part. He really plays the hell out of this sort of backwater drug dealer guy. Above Suspicion, not bad at all, that one.
A totally weird Shudder movie here. Shudder comes up with some really out there horror stuff and thrillers. Anything for Jackson is like Rosemary's Baby in reverse. Here's what I mean by that. This is about this couple who an older couple who cannot get over the fact that their grandson was killed, so they kidnap a pregnant woman and try to basically channel their dead grandson's spirit into the body of the unborn child. That's the premise for Anything for Jackson. So literally anything for Jackson. It is really, really creepy. The premise is creepy. The execution is even creepier. And for Shudder, that is all good. You're not going to recognize a lot of people in this. There's not a lot of names, but director Justin Dick, DYCK has some skills, and don't be surprised if he starts doing some pretty big stuff soon. Sure.
Bruce Willis, Cosmic Sin. Frank, it's actually a Frank Grillo movie. Bruce is in it. One of these movies. It's like when, one of these sort of big space adventures where you got these guys who are going to go out and attack this planet, this alien civilization that's been discovered, and they're going to launch this preemptive sort of attack. But hey, not terribly bad so far as these things go. A lot of fairly decent CGI sort of executed, and special effects are pretty good. And Bruce, he's in there for as long as he's in there doing his thing. It's really Frank Grillo's movie, and Frank is kind of like taking it up a notch with all of these things.
I'm glad that Frank's career at this point, Frank's been around for 35, 40 years? I mean, he's been around a long time. Since the 80s. Frank was doing stuff in the 80s. I'm so glad to see his career finally land, in a place where he's not just like some henchman in the background being a bad guy. I mean, he's doing some interesting work. He's getting a star in movies. It's good.
Yeah, Frank,
go for it, Frank. We get Resurrection, which is from Roma Downey and Mark Burnett, kind of continuing their series of Bible miniseries and Bible movies. This takes place, after Jesus' resurrection, and it's all about the persecution of Christians in the wake of that. This comes from AD. The Bible Continues. I mean, it's fine. It's not the budget that it should have. It's not done with the same. I mean, if you saw their productions of the Bible and AD. The Bible Continues and Son of God and all the stuff, and the recuts and multiple cuts of the things they've been doing. It's very much in the same vein of all that, but it has its audience, and I'm not gonna slight them. I love Jesus movies as much as anybody. I just wish the production value was better.
Nah, it happens. French Exit. Look, I always enjoy Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't think she works nearly as much as I wish she would. Michelle Pfeiffer, as she moves on to the sort of back half of her career. And French Exit she was a lot of fun in this movie. Playing this sort of like socialite, this inheritance queen. She had some dough. She's just about spent it all. She moves to Paris to live in this apartment with her son and a cat. And she's kind of a pain in the ass, and has to sort of reconcile what her life has sort of come around to. Lucas Hedges is in it. Tracy Letts, when he's not writing plays, is an actor, and he's in this movie. And it's and I think a lot of folks were looking at this for some award season love last year. It's not that kind of a movie. It's not like an award season sort of movie, but it's a perfectly lovely film and the exact kind of movie that Michelle Pfeiffer should be wandering around in. Being really charming and funny and sort of playing against her sort of type and character the way she does in this movie. French Exit, it was pretty good. I rather enjoyed it. A Zeal Jacobs film.
Yeah, I concur with that. We've also got another DC Universe movie, Batman The Long Halloween Part 1. So does it make me want to see Part 2? Yeah, kind of, maybe, if I have time. I'm not overwhelmingly into it. But these movies do have some fun twists and turns to them. I like the way they're written, if not necessarily the way they're animated. And the integration of the Falcone crime family in this thing is a nice little a nice little unexpected twist, because we expect, obviously Solomon Grundy and Catwoman and Joker and all the rest of them. But it's good. Why not? I guess. Why not?
Yeah.
Is that a recommendation?
Yeah, sure.
Is that a recommendation? I want to put a real quick shout out to some stuff from before I forget about it, from Classic Flicks, FLIX. You can go and check them out at classicflix.com, FLIX. They've got some great new releases from their Silver series. This is all DVD, not Blu-ray. But The Duke of West Point, starring Hayward and Fontaine, meaning Joan Fontaine. Mm-hmm. The Streamliners Collection, Volume 6, the Curly Comedies, with some amazingly adorable kids, like, Larry Olson and Eileen Jansen. I mean, it's fun stuff. And then the one that I like the most is The Crystal Ball, with Paulette Goddard and Ray Milland, which I think is a really wonderful discovery from 1943. If you haven't seen it, This thing has a fascinating history, and it winds up being an absolutely delightful film. Goddard, of course, at one point was, with Chaplin, and just an amazing actress, amazing career. Ray Milland, of course, can do no wrong. It's really it's a pretty great romantic comedy that kind of falls between the cracks because you don't normally think of that. You don't associate Ray Milland with romantic comedies.
No,
that's a good one. The Crystal Ball from 1943. So there you go.
Little William Bendix in that film. I always love that one.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here with new movies? Is there anything else that just jumps out, or should we dive into some TV?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the arrows.
We can do the arrows for sure. Let's do the arrows
because I see your Izumi for one thing, and what a beautiful movie. About a young woman who gets kidnapped into prostitution. It's just this beautiful spider tattoo on her back. Anyway, it's just an absolutely exquisite film from 1966. So what is that? Is that Blu-ray? Is that DVD? What do we get?
That is Blu-ray. That is Blu-ray with loads and loads and loads of extras on it.
Oh wow.
All the arrows, they're like Criterions, they just pile them up with these extras and documentaries and interviews and everything else. Yeah.
And Izumi. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, they load this up. It's got, it's got the new audio commentary with Japanese cinema scholar David Desser. It's got an introduction by Tony Raines, who does a lot of these kinds of things, and this really, really super cool visual essay by Daisuke Miya, which is really just absolutely beautiful. So no, this is a very nice set.
Is that the 1966 Django that I see there?
Oh, Django, yeah, baby, that's the original Django.
So the original Django,
4K in 4K. So here's the thing. Here's the story on this. There's a little bit of drama here. This was originally supposed to be released to Blu-ray in this nice, fancy, splashy set in May of last year. And it was like pre-pandemic when I got it originally, I think. And then there follows up this email saying, "Don't review it. We're pulling it. It's not going to be released." I'm like, why the hell not? This is a great set. You kidding me? This is Django. Come on. I was set to include it on the show. I was going to email you all this stuff, and they're like, "No, don't do it." And I've emailed them repeatedly over the last year. You got a new release date for Django? No. Is Django back on the schedule? No. Where's Django? We'll let you know. It was all very kind of, finally. It's 4K. That was the deal. They did it in 4K, and it's absolutely terrific.
What the hell were they?
I don't know. They were being very secretive, but it looks great. Sergio Corbucci's Franco Nero Django. We love Django. Yeah, and this thing is just piled with extras on it. I mean, it's got interviews galore, including like with stuntman and actor Gilberto however you pronounce his last name. No, it's really great. I mean, anything and everything you need to know about Django and spaghetti westerns is here. It's pretty great.
Fantastic. Yeah. 4K Django. Can't go wrong there.
4K Django. You cannot. Arrow also gave us Years of Lead, 5 classic Italian crime thrillers made between 1973 and 1977. I'm not a huge fan of Italian crime thrillers of that period. They're a little tiny bit cheesy for my taste, but this is like there's an actual genre that's a big deal in Japan from this period. It's like called Polizio Teshi or something like that. But it describes this particular, it's like Giallo, right? It's a genre that was very, very specific kind of film in a specific part of Italian cinema. If you like these kinds of films, it's go for it. I mean, not necessarily my films, but they are what they are. You've got Savage 3, Like Rabid Dogs, Colt 38 Special Squad, Highway Racer, and Happily Resolved. These are the movies. So, they're not my favorites, but, I'm sure somebody out there is just drooling over that.
Right? Well, the Stylist, which is a more contemporary film, but sort of falls into that whole sort of genre style or type in any case. About a hairstylist who becomes sort of obsessed with this girl. So it lives in the same space as those. What was that Hitchcock film? Frenzy, something like that. It kind of lives in that space. These movies kind of. Yeah.
And then we got a couple other here. Death Has Blue Eyes by Nico Mastorakis, which is a fun kind of exploitation-y, feminist. It's not quite in the I Spit on Your Grave territory, but it's sort of there. It's got a little bit of ghost story edge to it. It's a little giallo-y. It sort of crosses all those genres. It's worth checking out. If you know Nico Mastorakis as a filmmaker, you know exactly what to expect. They're all kind of the same. The one of these arrows that I'm really, really fond of is the Park Chan-wook, or Park Chan-wook, I'm told is the correct pronunciation. His film JSA for Joint Security Area. Park is the amazing director of, so many phenomenal, really difficult to watch Korean films. Old Boy being probably the most famous of them. Yeah. But his movies are really difficult to watch. Audition.
Yeah, Audition. They're intense,
right,
man.
Audition.
Yeah.
They're intense. They're all intense. Anyway, this actually won some awards. It's not quite as intense as those others, but because it's a war film. But it's based on kind of a North-South Korea war premise or skirmish along the demilitarized zone, and it uses that as kind of a metaphor for a whole lot of very disturbing observations about human nature, and it gets really creepily procedural too. It's a good film, but you got to know what you're getting into with Park Chan-wook.
Oh yeah,
you got to know. Lots of extras here too. All right, Tim. Where else? We got maybe like 2 minutes left. Anything in particular?
Well, you're asking about some TV, and I see that there's the Doctor Who Black Guardian trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just dying to know what the hell is in that because me and my Doctor Who sort of situation.
Yeah.
So what is what is this Black Guardian trilogy other than
the Black Guardian trilogy is from the Peter Davison year?
Ah, yes, I remember that. Peter used to wear the whole sort of like tennis outfit, the blonde.
Yes.
About what would it be? The fifth or sixth Doctor, I think, is what he is of the old era. Okay.
He's the one that always looked like he was getting ready for tennis at Wimbledon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's how he dressed with he dressed like he was going to play tennis.
Yeah.
With that white sweater.
The sixth Doctor. So that's that period. Okay, I remember that.
Yes. So it's rather amazing. It's 12 episodes, and each set of 4 episodes represents like a single movie per se. So that's what they mean by the trilogy. There's Modern Undead, which is 4 episodes, and then Terminus, another 4 episodes, and then Enlightenment, another 4 episodes. So it's story numbers 126, 27, and 28 for those that like to keep track in a really, really nerdy way. But I kind of, I didn't appreciate Davison as much as I do now. He was not a bad Who.
Well, yeah, he was one of the first straightforward Doctor Who's. He played it kind of straight. He wasn't particularly eccentric. He wasn't old. He wasn't foppish. He wasn't otherwise insane like Sylvester McCoy or some others. He was just sort of like this guy, and he looked like he was on his way to Wimbledon. In Wimbledon, with a kind of a normal haircut and demeanor. So he was interesting. So I would say he was the prototype for the latter Doctors who would come along in the new series.
That's a great point.
Who all engaged it more from that from the a more straightforward sort of standpoint. Yeah.
That's a great point. He really did kind of prototype it for everything that's come since. Yep. I hadn't thought of that. And then let me make a real quick shout out. Billions season 2. Ooh. I don't get this show. I don't get it.
Me neither.
Show? Do you like Billions?
No, there's nothing to like in Billions. Everybody's awful.
They're all terrible people, but clearly, if either of them ever wins, the show is over.
Yeah.
So this is just a cat and mouse game in which the mouse and the cat, it's just.
The very rich mouse and the very rich cat, watching the rich people kick each other is, and generally it's the fallout. Everybody else catches the fallout. The rich people, they're at the end of each episode, they're still rich. So I don't care.
And nobody has won.
Nobody's gonna win. Nobody can. It's ridiculous.
I don't get it. If they did like they do on Ozark, where you go, holy crap, you just killed a major character. Holy crap! What are you doing? Why would you do that?
Well, on Ozark, all these people are just one bad decision from either being bankrupt or dead, But that can't happen, because they can't actually kill each other. So no, that's there's no.
And we are a full decade into this horrible zombie wasteland now with the new Walking Dead series, World Beyond.
Yeah.
In its first season on AMC. I wonder how much more mileage they can squeeze out of this.
Well, they're not getting very much mileage out of that one. It's the least popular of all of the new Walking Dead incarnations thus far. I think folks are.
And I don't think it's because it's not good. I just think it's the idea is worn out.
Oh yeah,
this is well done. I watched a few episodes and I'm like, okay.
Oh well, Julia Ormond is in the. You can't.
It's not bad. It's just I've been there, done that, and I was never a huge fan. I'd catch an episode now and again, but it's just got a been there, done that feel. But anyway, it is nicely done if you're not burned out by now.
Yeah.
All right, that should do it. We are at the end, Tim. What's your summer like? I think we might get one more podcast out of the way, and then I'm on vacation for 2 weeks out of town. Are you heading out of town at any point?
I'm going to go back to St. Louis end of July for a couple of few days. So hang around with my mom. For some things. One good thing about the pandemic, it's made me realize I can go anywhere and be anywhere and do whatever I'm doing wherever I'm at. I kind of enjoy that a little bit. So that, and then I think I got a couple of appearances on Film Week, and then we of course are going to start our whole little new thing, that little Godcast situation.
Yes, we've got a new kind of a video podcast thing that we're going to be putting together. We'll post that on the it'll be to the DigiGods site, and we'll make mention of it probably on the next podcast. I think we'll have it under our belt at that point, and we'll certainly make mention of it on the social media pages as well. The Godcast.
Yeah.
And
we'll pick subjects. We'll talk about them. We'll have a guest occasionally, and just sort of rant and rave about the stuff that
whatever it is.
All the stuff that we usually rant and rave about at the top of this show. We'll take that and squeeze it into a show of its own.
And then, so we'll try to get one more of these podcasts under our belt before vacation time, and then I think we'll probably we'll reconnect beginning of August.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, have a great time, and be safe out there as we all get back to life as normal. Hopefully, be well.